Hello, I'm Serene Kaplan, a clinical psychologist, and I'm speaking to you from Johannesburg, South Africa. It has been a surreal few months since COVID-19 struck the planet, delivering seismic assaults and upheavals to our lives and vandalizing global markets. Chances are that right now you're feeling emotionally beaten up, which pretty much makes you normal. This is our first rodeo. It's an entirely unscripted narrative. We have no brochure or guidelines on how to manage a pandemic, the chaos and disruption it brings to our lives, and the destruction that it leaves in its wake as our world careens out of control. We've lost our reference points. We feel dislodged and untethered. Our routines and our expectations have been turned on their heads, and things change daily at breakneck speed. We've been stripped of so much that we took for granted. All that we know has slipped through our fingers as this faceless enemy rips us apart, leaving us feeling upended, dislocated, bereft, and bewildered. It's said that ideas are the currency of the 21st century, and in this series I'd like to share some of mine with you on how to make sense of this backdrop of uncertainty. Crisis is a great revealer and has much to teach us. The honeymoon is over. Those initial heady days back in March saw us baking, learning a new language online, doing DIY projects around the house when we still hadn't quite wrapped our heads around what was still to come. We didn't know anyone with the virus, and certainly nobody who had died from it. Over 100 days post-lockdown finds us in the eye of the storm, approaching the peak of the virus, and the despair and malaise have kicked in. We tick all the fatigue boxes: Zoom fatigue, compassion fatigue, and lockdown fatigue. We are newsed out, masked out, and sanitized out. We feel antsy, fed up, restless, bored, and disillusioned, just longing for our old lives or a change of scenery. Yet we know that we are far from the finish line. Whole organizations and industries have collapsed. Small businesses are on life support, battling to find a foothold. This is nothing short of trauma. We need urgent responses to an urgent situation. Support and tools are critically needed right now. We've lost our roadmap, and we need to find a new one fast if we are to survive. It's being said that the next pandemic will be a mental health one, and we need to spotlight this, not letting it take a back seat. Now, everybody has a threshold as we feel the onslaught. Personal growth and wisdom matter more now than ever before. In this 3-part series, I'm going to help you to access coping strategies to move you out of feeling overwhelmed to taking the next small steps, nudging you to a place where you can access resilience. In this first podcast today, I will be talking about anxiety and fear and the loss of control that we're struggling with. COVID-19 is like that black swan, a rare, unforeseeable, unavoidable catastrophe that nobody could dodge. So the first thing that we've lost is our sense of control. Our brains seek out stability and control, and we are wired for homeostasis. We're addicted to the familiar. We don't do well with feeling impotent and helpless or disenfranchised from our personal freedom. Now, the truth bomb here is that we only ever have an illusion of our control. The unvarnished version is that we never had it in the first place. Life conspires to disorganize the ducks that we thought we had in a row. We kind of fool ourselves into thinking we're in charge of everything. But turns out we're not, after all. The spoiler alert is that the only certainty we have is uncertainty. And here's the thing. The news flash is that you're not in control of how things go. You are only in charge of how you go, your side of the seesaw, as it were. Thus, the golden nugget here is to distinguish what small pockets of control you can hold on to give you scaffolding under your feet, and just let go of all the things that you have zero control over. So, that being said, we need to have a sense of agency in order to cope. So do an audit separating out the controllables from the uncontrollable. You can't fix the world economy or change the daily stats, but you can, for example, choose to eat healthily, exercise, and support your immune system by getting enough rest. You can't fix this, but you can be the best partner or parent or friend to someone right now. You can't control the future, but you can pour your energy into what's good just in the moment. When you live in the present, life educates you in exactly the means that's required to meet what's coming your way. The people I'm working with who are giving up on trying to control everything so tightly are doing way better. You see, the fantasy of controlling the future creates anxiety, which is the next thing under the microscope today. The number of people wrestling with anxiety has far exceeded all historical norms. And COVID-19 is for sure a can opener. If you had anxiety before, it's probably been notched up a whole lot. So right now, most of us are imbibing a toxic diet of fear and anxiety, which we're dishing up for ourselves daily. COVID-19 serves up the perfect ingredients for a hearty anxiety stew. This recipe is no good for our physical and mental health. There's a supermarket of anxiety out there, a catalogue of fears, and nobody has the monopoly on worry right now. It's kind of like we're all swimming in the anxious soup together, maxing out and stockpiling our anxiety. There was a 34% increase in prescriptions for anxiety meds in March this year alone. Anxiety is that uninvited visitor who shows up when we're facing a crisis. It's a human feature, it's not a flaw, but it's a brain parasite that makes you feel paralyzed, overthinking everything, and living inside your head. We become experts at future tripping, and at times like these, catastrophizing, imagining the worst, and scaring ourselves way more than is necessary when we keep dress rehearsing for disaster. When our anxiety is out of control, our worries metastasize and hemorrhage out, holding us hostage. Anxiety is always context-based. This evolutionary inbuilt mechanism could save your life. Like if you're a caveman, it's probably way more functional to notice a saber-toothed tiger than a rainbow. This choice can be life-preserving. But when anxiety is given free rein and goes unchecked, it exhausts our ability to cope and leaves us hypervigilant and dysregulated. When anxiety strikes, our amygdala gets highly activated, our frontal lobes go offline, and it ushers with it cloudy thinking and brain strain, which is the last thing you need right now as you scramble to prop yourself up and keep your mental health on track. Now, panic causes tunnel vision, whereas calm allows us to more easily assess the situation and see options. Panic's a bit like a pot that's boiling over, flooding our systems with way too much adrenaline. So that's the forensics on worry and anxiety. So what do we do about it? Firstly, don't fight it. It's a bigger opponent than all of us. Attempts to get rid of anxiety is what keeps an anxiety disorder firmly in place. So trying to get rid of it is a bit like trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon. It's just not going to happen. And anxiety gets worse when we try too rigidly to control it. So, surrender to it. Let it visit, but don't let it overstay its welcome. A good technique is to create what we call a worry window, a designated time that you allocate and cordon off just to worry. Then worry once, but worry well. Have a worry fest, a worry party, where you have permission to let the worries have the floor. Then after 15 minutes of pure, undiluted worrying, slam on the brakes. And if the worry shows up again, just like hospital wards have visiting hours, turn the worry away and tell it to come back by invitation only at its allotted time. Now, this might sound contrived, but it's highly effective at putting limits and borders on our anxiety. Stress shows up when there's an imbalance between your resources on the one hand and the incoming demands on the other. Now, when your stressors outweigh your resources, that's when you become overwhelmed. Now, as we go through this series, we'll be accumulating tools to lighten the load of your stress. And in the third podcast, I'll be explaining how to make deposits into your resource tank. You see, anxiety is very often the result of overestimating your problems and underestimating your resources. Now, the bad news is that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and COVID-19 is not a one-day game. But the good news is that resilience is our shared genetic inheritance for over thousands and thousands of years. Resilience is a muscle that we can strengthen and flex in these times of adversity. With history as our guide, we know that humanity will prevail. It always does. The world will recover. It will be different and forever altered, and so will we. These podcasts will help you to design a bulletproof personal manifesto, making sure that you're not part of the problem, but part of the solution, a stakeholder in your own path to resilience. The breaking news is that this is a time of many unexpected opportunities. Look out for the next video where I will be exploring our thoughts and feelings and strategies to manage them in the time of pandemic. Until next time, this is Serene Kaplan signing off.